Up in a mere moment, but first we begin tonight with breaking news from the Washington swamp. Tonight, two major reports from investigative reporter John Solomon. First, a new bombshell from the Durham. According to brand new court filings, we now know that the FBI paid a Russian man with ties to Moscow's intel agency for 3 years to be a confidential informant against Donald Trump. And it goes deeper. This individual was the primary source for Christopher Steele's dirty Russian disinformation dossier that Hillary Clinton paid for and is now on trial for lying to the FBI. In other words, the Bureau was so desperate to get Trump that they paid a Russian agent to spew anti-Trump lies for 3 years. They also knew directly from him in early of 2017 that the dossier was completely false, but people like Jim Comey continue to sign off on the FISA warrants, even though they knew without the lying dossier it would never have been approved. Where is the raid of Comey's home? Where is equal justice in America? It seems to be dead for the moment. Now, the second explosive report, again from John Solomon, involves January the 6th. One former intel analyst for the Capitol Police is now blowing the whistle, telling Solomon that clear and direct warnings about the dire security situation at the Capitol way prior to January 6th were totally, completely ignored by those in charge, and that would be including, ultimately, Nancy Pelosi. Here with all these explosive details, he's the editor-in-chief at justthenews.com. John Solomon. John, I'll let you start wherever you want. Two big stories tonight.
Yeah, listen, you hit the Danchenko thing right on the head. Let's think about this. The primary source for the Christopher Steele dossier, which was funded by the Hillary Clinton campaign, is a person that the FBI believed starting in 2008 was tied to Russian intelligence. Why did they believe that? Because they had evidence he was soliciting Obama administration appointees, saying he would pay them if they would leak him classified information. He was working with the Russian intelligence agencies. He leaves the country. He comes back. They find out that he's the primary source for Christopher Steele. The FBI fires Christopher Steele because he was leaking to the media. They then hire this guy to be a confidential human source. They hire him after they detect in their first interview with him in many years, in January 17, that he lied to them, that he denied being tied to Russian intelligence. They had to say, listen, buddy, we know you're tied to Russian intelligence. He corrects himself then. They then go and put this man on the payroll for 3 years, trying to dig up dirt on Donald Trump. It's an extraordinary thing. And now we know that while he was doing all that work for the FBI, getting paid by American tax dollars, he was lying to the FBI, not once, not twice, 5 times in the indictment. And John Durham says he's going to reveal many more lies that Igor Danchenko told the FBI during this time. The FBI's case against for Russia collusion couldn't be any more embarrassing than what we now know.
Hey John, I remember it was Andrew McCabe that had said, no, if you don't have the dirty dossier, and again, he was the primary source, he told them in early 2017, that means 2 FISA warrants were signed after, and McCabe said without that dossier, there would be no FISA warrant granted.
That's why the Justice Department withdrew 2 of those FISA warrants. There is no basis for them to stand under the law. And now we know most of the confidential informant information the FBI was getting about Donald Trump was completely manufactured, including that famous P tape. You know, the whole story about the Moscow hotel. John Durham reveals in tonight's filing, he's going to reveal that the Moscow and hotel employees who were allegedly quoted in the Steele dossier, they said they never told anyone. They didn't know anything about Donald Trump, terrible things that went on there. It's not true. Every part of the Steele dossier and Igor Danchenko's lies are going to get exposed at next month's trial.
Okay, now let's go on to the other breaking news story tonight. And this gets very alarming. That as early as I think December 21st or 23rd, I forget the exact date, I read your article, that in fact multiple warnings, intelligence was saying that there were groups, radical groups out there planning to riot on January the 6th, and they were ignored completely?
Yeah, absolutely. So FBI, Homeland Security, U.S. Marshals Service, and the Metropolitan Police Department all provided the Capitol Police with extensive, detailed information they were intercepting through their sources of people planning to go to the January 6th rally and cause trouble, attack members of Congress, storm the Capitol. That's an exact word from the intelligence reports. All of that is gathered up by the Intelligence Division of the Capitol Police, and it's disseminated to the leadership and other people, and then nothing happens. In fact, the final plans for January 6th. All these documents are on Just the News now. You can go see them. Actually says there was no threat analysis, no known threat analysis, a complete lie. But here's the most important thing. A whistleblower has stepped forward. His name is Eric Hoare. He's a decorated Army military veteran. He is an intelligence analyst. He was one of the best that the Capitol Police have. He now works for the Homeland Security Department. He's so trusted. He says that he wrote a memo. Actually, we have the memo. On January 9th, 3 days after the terrible riots occurred, he wrote a memo to all his bosses saying, listen, there's no way to sugarcoat this. We knew in advance of all of this intelligence, and we didn't act on it. We failed. We've got to learn from it. We can't cover it up. There's no way to spin this other than we had an opportunity to stop. And he talks about how nauseous he was, knowing that his fellow officers went out there on January 6th completely blind to the intelligence he provided his bosses. This is a devastating whistleblower. I have confirmed he is working with Capitol Hill Republicans, House Republicans, working on the House Administration Committee, Rep. Rodney Davis. They've interviewed him and several other whistleblowers. If Republicans get control of Congress next year, an entirely different story about Nancy Pelosi's preparations for January 6th is going to burst onto the scene. Tonight, people get to see the first part of it, the actual whistleblowers' memos to his bosses 3 days after January 6th, and all the intelligence he provided going back to December 21st, 2020.
And we expect that the Capitol Police chief, who had requested the guard, he's coming out with a book, and that's supposed to be equally as explosive?
I've heard those reports. I haven't been able to confirm it, but I've heard that he's been writing on a book or some sort of a long expose on what he knows. But the documents that are out tonight are going to irrefutably show, one, Capitol Police had plenty of warnings, specific, detailed, extensive, nonstop warnings. And when they got their police department ready for January 6th, they left all that intelligence out. I encourage everybody to go take a look at the riot unit document, the document they gave the riot control units. It says there was no threat analysis at all. That is simply not true from the documents we made public tonight. Eric Hoare, remember that name. He's going to be a very important witness in the next year in Congress.
All right, John Solomon, thank you for those reports. We appreciate it. JustTheNews.com. Now, we are only 56 days away from the all-important midterm elections, and frankly, it can't come fast enough. Now, today we got more horrific economic numbers. Inflation was even higher than expected, rising in August. Again, a 41-year high, 8.3%. Food, rent, healthcare, electricity, all are way up, and also now at record highs. Gas is still more than double what it was before Biden became president, despite a dangerous political gimmick that he has been implementing to empty out our strategic petroleum reserves right before the election. How convenient. We'll flood the market with more energy, more oil, so gas prices will seem like they're going down. The problem is it's a major national security risk because now those reserves are at a 38-year low. All of this after a 2-point interest rate hike from the Federal Reserve. Now another rate hike next week is all but certain, likely another, 75 basis points, which is massive, and that means the housing market is on the verge of completely imploding. New home construction will stop, sale of pre-existing homes will stop, home values will plummet. On top of your IRAs and your 401ks. Keep in mind, when Trump left office, the average fixed rate mortgage was 2.77%, 30-year fixed rate mortgage. Now under Biden, it is over 6%, and it is now getting higher. So under Trump, a 30-year mortgage on a $500,000 house with a 20% down payment had a monthly payment of $1,637. You buy that same house today, it will cost you $2,369 a month, a $730 difference. Now, make no mistake, this hurts low-income Americans, middle-income Americans, and especially those that are on fixed incomes. And simply put, Joe Biden and his fellow Democrats, they are now destroying the American dream for pretty much everyone attempting to climb the ladder. And those just trying to hold on. 2/3 of Americans now, they live paycheck to paycheck. And now the market is also responding. They posted the worst single day since the height of the pandemic in 2020. S&P dropped a whopping 4.3%. Dow Jones dropped almost 1,300 points. The Nasdaq down 632 today. But also today, during a big event at the White House, Joe Biden was celebrating his self-proclaimed economic achievements. Now, he was actually patting himself on the back for fixing inflation. And if you think that seems crazy, that's because it is. As